Hi, everyone. Good morning, evening, afternoon. Welcome to the Wolken webinar. My name is Akriti. I am the head of marketing here at Wolken Software based in Bangalore. Uh, and we are so happy to have you all with us for the webinar today. So I will quickly give you a background about Wolken leading then into the webinar. And before that, if there is any question that you need to ask during the webinar, please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A section, and Christie will be able to answer them as and when. And we also have the Q&A session towards the end. So if there is anything that is unanswered, we will take it up that also. So Wolken Software is an AI and cloud-native SaaS application that enables enterprises to provide superior internal and external customer service and reduce cost of operations through automation, machine learning, and integrations. We have a plethora of features that come along with the Wolken Service Desk application, like a full-fledged knowledge base, which is the topic of today's webinar that we'll get into details later. We have real-time reports, we have built-in BI tools, we support integrations with various applications. Some of them are built-in. If they are not there, we can always look at those. Wolken application, Wolken Service Desk is easily configurable, at a touch of a button. There's a low to no code customization available. We have the fastest time to market, and we could help you reduce your TCO by up to 50%. Here's a quick snapshot. So we have 14 plus customers. We have a couple of Fortune 500 customers, Fortune 1000 customers like Broadcom, CA Technologies. We have Symantec, Freecharge here in India. Our focus geos are North America and Asia, and we have displaced incumbent brands like Freshdesk, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Zendesk for a few of our customers here. Our product suite comprises of functionalities or use cases like a customer service desk, IT service management, we have HR case management, and quality service desk as well. And coming to value propositions, so as I mentioned, we have helped some of our existing customers to reduce their TCO by up to 50 to 60%. The integrations that come built in with the platform are again a plus point. It is very, very easy to use. You could get to things with just a few clicks, and the support cost is something that is extremely, you don't need an external support system to support this service desk. So that can also help you reduce your cost. And we have multiple units. It supports multiple languages, and there's so much that I can talk about here right now, but it's not about this. So we will head to the webinar right now, and I would like to introduce Christie to start with. So Christie Morin brings over 20 years of experience in the enterprise software support industry. Christie's specialty is in working with customer support organizations in driving the value of self-service programs to deliver an exceptional customer experience while reducing operational costs. Christie has worked with a variety of CRM solutions in creating knowledge systems and self-service programs to reduce resolution time. Christie holds a bachelor's degree in computer science and a variety of certifications such as PMP, ITIL, KCS, V6, and Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. So over to you, Christie.
Thank you very much. And thank you guys for joining me here today. As mentioned, so I come from Broadcom, and I want to tell you just a little bit about Broadcom and what we do. So we are a global infrastructure technology leader built on 50 years of innovation, collaboration, and engineering excellence. We design, develop, and supply semiconductor and infrastructure software solutions. It's through the CA technology acquisition that I'm able to share with you our story today about KCS. So again, thanks for joining me to learn about how you can scale your business, right? How you can save money, you can improve your quality of your products. Ultimately, how do you improve customer satisfaction and the customer experience? It sounds amazing, right? Almost sounds like a magic pill. And it kind of is. It's pretty basic of what we want to share with you as far as the knowledge management solution that KCS provides. So it doesn't matter if you're a manager or your CTO on the phone today. We all want to deliver value back to our business units. So I appreciate you taking the time today to learn about knowledge-centered support and how it can help you do this. So let's just be clear that customers prefer to self-serve, right? When you think about yourself, when you have a problem with your phone, you just go and search on a search engine, right? So TSIA did some analysis that says 80% prefer to self-serve before they even contact you. And so this is nothing that we're trying to enforce on customers. It's something that customers want. And then that frees up some time that when they really do need you, you're able to attend to them. So when you talk about self-service, in the stream of things, improving self-service allows customers to adopt faster. So this is typical of most organizations, right? The current state, you have things of like complex cases that are really hard and you're trying to figure them out. You have these easy cases and you have this like how to. And the goal of any self-service program is to allow customers to find answers on their own, right? When they have questions, reducing the need to contact us when we know the answer. And that is represented in the yellow and the red. This in turn gives your agents more time to solve the harder questions, right? Do more proactive and preventive, do more training, do all the cool things that we hired these really smart people to solve problems for. And so this in turn reduces your volume count, right? And that saves us time, money, and resources. So KCS as a foundation empowers your organization to do more with less. Makes sense, right? So how do we do this? So the Broadcom strategy is 4 things, and I'll go through these one by one. But the first one is is content, sorry. So you'll hear this a lot in KCS, that content is king. It starts with content. If you don't have content or answers to your questions, you really don't have much for everybody else to do, right? And so that starts with where the keyword here is in demand questions, right? So as customers ask us questions, we use KCS to search, to reuse, to create and publish within the workflow of the case to make sure that the next person who asks that question can find that. So content is really important. The next part is search. So if you have content, you have to make sure that search works really well. And that could be a search engine like search engine optimization on popular search sites like Bing and Google and those players. It could also be the search engine that's on your support portal. And it would also be the search engine that's actually in your case management or knowledge management tool. And so the secret sauce there in the search part of that is looking at what content is being used, what content is being searched for, and what do you learn from those interactions, right? To how to improve the content and the search engine working. And then the next area is AI and machine learning. So those are big topics, right, in today's world. And so using AI and machine learning about what happened in interactions, what did people click through, what did they use, and how do we use that to increase the effectiveness of self-service? So there's a saying that knowledge is power, using it is powerful. And then lastly, you get to the personalized experience. And here I love to think about how could we become the Amazon of customer support, right? It seems that Amazon knows so much about us. And how do we get to really know our customers? Customers constantly tell us, I want you to know me, right? Know where I'm at in the journey, know what I looked at, know where I'm at, what I might need next, right? Be more proactive with me. So how do we get to that, right? And it's obviously a process through content and search and AI, and ultimately delivering a personalized experience. So that's a lot, right? And that's what really keeps me gainfully and proudly employed at Broadcom to help build this strategy for our customers, because that is really what our customers are looking for and what they want. And ultimately, it helps our organization in saving money and time and resources. But let's be crystal clear. It all starts with content, right? If you don't have content, then none of the rest of these pieces work really well. Okay, so let me introduce you to knowledge-centered service. So knowledge-centered service actually used to be called knowledge-centered support, right? So it's a set of methodology, a set of practices that you use to create and reuse knowledge. And the reason it came from the word support is because typically support organizations are the ones, you know, the mailman keeps coming and giving you cases every day, right? And so it was found very easy to use in support organizations as far as a methodology to search for content, reuse it, and give it, allow it for our customers to use it. And so, but it quickly became usable or popular in other areas that are not customer support, such as IT, finance, HR. So if your agents are internal or external, or regardless of the organization, KCS might be a really good solution for you. So KCS is not made up. It actually is a part of a consortium, a nonprofit that was created about 1992. Some big players that were part of that, right? So you can see some of the names: HP, Avaya, Cisco, Dell. A lot of people came together and thought about how could they create a set of methodologies that be rich to support case management and what we were learning from there, and capturing that experience and making it available out to customers. They're also supported by the Help Desk Institute, or HDI. I encourage you, if you're new to KCS, you can go to the website. They have free resources from adoption guide and getting your program started, to the best practices, to measurements, to metrics. Really great information. They also have resources on people that can help you get started in the program. So ultimately, what KCS strives to do is create content as a byproduct of solving problems. So what this means in layman terms is, as engineers are working cases, we expect them to search, to use knowledge if it's available, to create it, and to do that within the workflow or the life cycle of the case, right? So typically in organizations, or I know in sport organizations, having 20 years of being a sport agent to a manager to leading programs like this, is you might do the case, but then you'll take a note and say, okay, I'll write that knowledge article or write that piece of information down and capture it on Friday. Friday, I'm gonna have time. And Friday never comes, right? It's typical for most of us, we're super busy. So it really says it has to be part of the way that you work, right? It's not something we do in addition, it's the way that we solve problems. And that's really the key piece. But when we do that, right, and we're constantly searching, now please go back a slide. When we're constantly searching, you are, we're looking at evolving that content, because if you're using it, you're reviewing it, and you're making improvements to it. So you're constantly, you have a collection of knowledge that is constantly being used and reviewed and improved. And that becomes all of ours. It's no longer the day that, well, I'm super smart and I wrote this article, and but I don't trust Johnny over here to write this article because, you know, I really know it all. It becomes all of ours experiences to share with our customers and use ourselves. I mean, that's a big key thing, that KCS is not just for customers, it's also internally viable. And that in turn leads to the sharing and the rewarding of agents for creating this awesome set of content that helps them and helps their customers solve problems. You know, we look at, looking at the engineer, it took 30 minutes to write an article that might have been viewed 150 times and maybe saved 150 cases coming into support. And that is extremely powerful in a customer support organization. So you'll hear the saying of solve once, use often, right? That is what KCS intends to do. So there's a lot of benefits of KCS, right? So on the consortium's website, I pulled this, right? So it's very typical that in organizations, they've done a lot of research and they have a lot of players that belong to the consortium. You can become a member and attend webinars and learn about this. But these are standard benefits, right? Solve cases and incidents faster. If I don't have to learn every interaction and every problem manually myself, I can use something that my colleague in India maybe populated last night and say, wow, that solved it. That saved me 2 hours of troubleshooting or going through all the scenarios to learn that. That's really great, right? That helps us solve problems faster. So we want our customers and our employees to use knowledge when solving problems, especially when we know the issues. And that frees up time for us to do other things. But when we do that, and when we say that we use knowledge, we then look at that, of what's being used and what we call in demand, right? What is most popular? What is going on? And that actually powers us to improve that content for better self-service, but also helps us improve our processes and even the product. Like, why do 100 people have to read this one article every week to use this feature of the product? So it helps us actually drive more adoption and improvement of our products through the use of self-service, which then helps contribute to such awesome benefits like these. So on a side note, I just want to share that the KCS Academy offers different levels of certification. And the reason I think this is really important, as I said, I've been from the manager to a program manager, a director of support. Let's face it, oftentimes we ask our employees to do more, and we don't really give them much for it or recognition. And the key thing here is that KCS is industry known, and there are certifications available to not only help get your team on the same page, to get them up to speed on what you're doing, but it also gives them lifetime employability. You can certify your engineers in this technology and give them some skills that they can use that are transferable in their life. And I think that's pretty cool. Next slide. Okay, so I want to bring this a little bit closer home to what we did here at Broadcom. And so I want to start off by saying that KCS is a continuous process improvement, right? It's like any program you're going to run. There's some steps you're going to start to get it started, and then things change, and you're constantly going to do it a little bit different and do it over pieces, right? So, but just to kind of give you an idea of how we got started here, and when I say at Broadcom, it's actually, you know, we have divisions of Broadcom, so it's not a representative of Broadcom as a whole, but actually in a CA division of Broadcom, Enterprise Software. So at a very high level, we trained all of our engineers on KCS fundamentals, right? So it's really important they know what they're doing, what this is, where they're going, what this means. You have to win the hearts and the minds of people before you mandate or dictate them to do something, right? So, so it's really important that they knew what we were trying to do and the value it brought to them as engineers, as well as the value it brought to our customers and our organization. So we integrated it with the troubleshooting methodology. So, right, so when we go back to KCS says it's a byproduct of solving cases, we have to integrate it. So when you're in discovery or diagnostics of a problem, we expect you to search. We expect for you to use knowledge. We expect for you to update it. So we kind of mirrored it into our processes. So it wasn't something additional we did. It was the way that we worked cases. It was the expectation that engineers use KCS through the case management lifecycle. But one thing that really helps with that is we integrate it with our case management system. So there was a time that we had two separate systems. You had case management over here and you had knowledge management over here, and it was something additional that really made it hard and made it something easy to forget. So we integrated it with our case management system. And we simplified the workflow, right? So from a case, you could click on knowledge and actually populate knowledge from a case without having to go and start all over and populate it. So we just made that super easy for engineers. So time to publish was minutes, not hours, and definitely not on Friday. And then what we did too, we found was super helpful, is we certified our management team. So when I say it used to be the Christie show, sometimes it was that because as a one certified person over many people, who weren't certified or invested in, it made it hard. But once they got some ownership in the game and really understood what we were after, they all shared the responsibility of the health of our program. And so that was a really important feature as well. And process first, tool later. And the reason I want to comment on this again is that you have to win the hearts and minds of your engineers and your team of what you're doing before you put in a tool that maybe mandates every step of the way, makes them do things. Because our engineers are creative and they'll find ways around that, right? If that's what you do. But if they're really bought into it, they're gonna be happy to help. But a tool is really important too, because a tool will enable them and make it easier for them versus make it harder. So and definitely something that you want to pay attention to and keep in mind. So, so I want to show you, these are not Broadcom today metrics. Okay, this is actually, if you look at the dates, you'll see it's a little, about a year outdated. But CA Technologies, when we implemented KCS, we really looked at some of the benefits. This stuff absolutely works, right? Now, these was 4 samples of looking at CSAT, right? Case resolution. I mean, it is clear that when we use knowledge with our customers, they, one, were more happy. Our time to resolution went down. It reduces our escalations, and our first day closure was lower. I mean, it makes sense. If I'm an engineer and I have a case and I don't know how to solve it, I'm going to spend some time spinning up a lab or doing something to figure it out. Or I search a repository, a knowledge base, and I say, hey, Johnny solved this yesterday or last week. There's the answer. I'm just going to ask the customer to go look at this article and see if that helps them. So it's very, very helpful. It's very, for our agents to get up to speed on a new product or maybe a new release, super helpful. For our customers to be able to find that answer and not have to come to us and say, oh, I asked you this question. We're like, oh, here's the answer. Like, oh, why not to come to you? Why couldn't I find that on my own? That's what we hear a lot. And so definitely a very, very powerful tool. And while this isn't current today, as we've gone through the acquisition, our tools are changing. And so I necessarily can't show you our metrics today. Absolutely stand by that there are definite improvements you will see in implementing KCS from the customer side to an agent side. All right. Okay, so technology accelerates process, right? And so when I mentioned before, process first, tools later, but it's absolutely, technology will help your agents do more. And so it was with this webinar that I wanted to lay the foundation of KCS as a powerful tool that you can use in your organization and introduce Wolken as a new vendor, right? New vendor on the block. Can you go back to, go back to slide, thank you. Okay, so Wolken is the preferred vendor for Broadcom software support. So we use them as a case management tool, and we use them as a knowledge platform. It integrates case management and the knowledge platform. So when I mentioned before that we can go from a case and we can create knowledge, or we can search knowledge, and we can link knowledge, it's not something additional we have to do. It's very closely married. That gives our engineers time back to do their job versus spending a lot of time trying to manage the knowledge management piece. So Wolken supports a lot of the KCS practices, and this is what I wanted to introduce them to share their story and where they're at with supporting KCS. But a couple of things that are really important to us that we got out of the box functionality. As they mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, that there's very low to no code to get going. You know, you have agent-based access on author and publisher, whatever your licensing model is. You can search and link from the case. You can create knowledge from the case. There's one-click publishing. You can also support approval workflow, right, based on those who don't have a license to publish. And there's a lot of reporting. So you have agent reporting and management reporting. So for those of you familiar with KCS, this is very common to you. If you're new to this, you might not have any idea of what some of these features are. So without further ado, let me hand it back to Wolken and let them share a little bit about their tool and give you a demo for those of you who have not seen the Wolken application. You can go to the next slide, actually. So I want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully this is informative. You've got some idea about what KCS is if you're on the new spectrum, if you're very well versed in KCS. I look forward to them showing you the tool here in a couple of minutes. But thank you for your time. And if I could ever be of any help or answer any questions, definitely reach out on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly at my Broadcom address. So thank you, and back to you, Wolken.
Thank you so much, Christie. That was really informative. And even for a layman or someone who already is aware of KCS, it was really, really helpful and informative. Before I move on, Christie, there are a couple of questions that I see in the Q&A section. Would you want to take them up now?
Sure, let's do that. So it's actually a question for the Wolken team. So for organizations practicing KCS or hoping to roll out this methodology, any possibility of pursuing KCS verification or alignment of the platform?
Yeah, so this is Sudhir here. So yes, I mean, to answer the question, absolutely, we are, practicing the KCS methodology, and we are definitely going to get verified on KCS V6 very soon. So that is a process that's ongoing. We will get verified on that.
Excellent. All right, the next question is, hi there, does KCS ensure standardization across the enterprise in terms of knowledgeware? Also faster qualitative training across? So absolutely, right? So in KCS, something that's very common is create a content standard, right? So this is the way that we want to create content. These are the templates, or in our instance, we use one template, and this is how we want you to write titles. This is how we capture our use of pronouns, all that good stuff. This is what it's called a content standard. So there's examples actually out there you can take and reuse. We have our own that is our standard, and how we want to write, how many words we use in our titles, how we use images, all that stuff. So when you have that as part of your methodology that KCS provides, it becomes very consistent, and you expect everybody to act and look the same way when they're writing content. So gives you more of a consistent voice representing your company. It's a great question.
Thank you, Christie.
Sure.
Okay, we don't have any more questions.
There is one more question from Vivek Mansingh. He's mentioned it in the chat window. The question is for Christie.
Okay.
It says, does Broadcom also train their content creation people in KCS?
So that's a good question. So no. So content, when you mean content creation, I think you mean tech docs or documentation. So that's different. We do partner with them. They know what we're doing. We look at our content between, should it reside in documentation or knowledge? But I do believe that tech writers are much more formal than what we expect in KCS. So there's a little bit more in that if you want to discuss, but they're not necessarily trained on KCS. KCS is in demand in the moment, writing content, where documentation is much more thorough. Let me go onto the engine and tell you everything I know about this product. That's not what a knowledge base article is. A knowledge base is a question and answer, a resolution about a specific case catered to the person who asked it. So it's different. No, great question. Thank you. I'll answer a question in the chat. So certainly there were requirements of out-of-box availability. So how is this handled by CA and Wolken teams? So when we migrated to Wolken, we had requirements that we built up that we needed X features, and those were scheduled for deployment. And so all of our must-haves for moving to Wolken were covered, and then we work with iteration releases on new features. Like as they discussed that they're working towards verification and alignment, they're adding new features for the KCS processes as they go.
So you guys can see my screen now?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I would like to start about how do we link the knowledge base articles to the cases. So if you look at one of the cases here, yeah. So if you look at one of the cases here, it will automatically give you the results from our knowledge base. articles where you can actually go in and look at the relevant articles based on the keywords which is there in the case, right? So you can also go and refer in details, as well as you can link them to the case, so that whenever your agent is working on the resolution, he can actually look at the article then and there and link them, so that your end users can see, your customers can see in that portal. So it is a click where you can just go and link this article to this case, and it will be available for you for your customers at the next moment. So this way you are giving the full access of your knowledge created, the content for your agents, so that your as Christie mentioned your time to resolution will automatically increase when they have enough data to refer and then work towards the resolution there. So similarly, you also have say this is for the existing articles, right? Whenever your agent is working on the case and he wants to refer the articles, he can go in and system will give them a pop-up of how many relevant articles are present for this particular case. He can refer and then work on the case. Similarly, if he is working on a new case altogether and then he wants to create a knowledge out of it, right? So which will actually help his colleagues to work on the case for the future references. You can just go into knowledge tab and see, you can actually go in and click on create article, which will create an article with one click, right? It will just go and pick up all the configured data, which will be picked up automatically, and it will create an article for you on the fly. And this is stored in our knowledge base for the future references. And as you can see all the data captured from the case with and the resolution notes, and it will be put into that particular articles as well. This is how you can actually create articles on the fly. And if you go back to the case, you can see all the knowledge articles which are created from this particular case. And you also have an option where you can go in and see linked cases. Say suppose there are 100 cases which are created, and it is all linked to the single article which is created from another thing, right? You can just go in and link them to that case, so that instantly you can see the articles which are created for that case and which are linked for that case. This way your agents will have a full access of the knowledge base, and they have access to create the knowledge on the fly. As Christie mentioned, this is the way you can create it and maintain it and improve your knowledge on the fly. And I would like to highlight a couple of other points as well. So if you go into all articles in this particular page, you see the articles which are already created. So you see 4 tabs. One is my articles, my actionable, and all articles. So these are the articles which are present, and you can go in and refer any articles and look at the linked cases on the fly, and see how it is actually integrated to your case management. So your knowledge management and case management are integrated, and like Christie said, it is married together, so that you have a better understanding, and your total time of resolution will decrease. Similarly, if you go into any of the articles, you also have a feature called feedback. And whenever you talk about any article, the quality of the article is equally important when you're actually maintaining maintaining and managing the knowledge base, right? So if you go into feedback, there are 3 processes which we have set up. And this is again, the Wolken has built this module by looking at the KCS practices, right? So there are 3 options where you can do an article quality indexing. So one is with review. When I say with review, it is with the questions. One is without review, and one is general review. So if you click on AQI with review, I'm just taking you through AQI with review in this particular demo. So it will give you the set of questions where you can just go and answer this again. So these are the questions which are configured and managed based on KCS practices. Again, there is an option of adding more questions and customizing this based on client needs as well. So if you can go in and answer these questions, and then it will give you the score based on the feedback which are collected for these articles, and this will give an idea about your quality of your articles and how it is being used, and number of hits, number of views which will get to this article. So this is how we have implemented a knowledge article with KCS best practices. Again, this is what we wanted to cover on this demo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Preetham. Yeah. Christie, we have a couple of more questions that we can take now.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you open the chat window, there's a question from Kiran. Is KCS specific to technical terms or can be adopted by non-technical teams as well, like customer care?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's anything. So the promise at KCS is that someone asked you a question, you have an answer, and you capture that and you reuse it. So if it's technical, if it's not technical, it's a product agnostic, right? So it doesn't matter. The idea is that you solve it once and use often. So I believe this University of Phoenix actually has a pretty funny video about a guy sitting in a cube and someone comes and asks him for something and he's like, yeah, go, you know, they ask him where the coffee maker is. He's like, it's over there. And then they keep coming and asking the same question versus him just probably pushing that knowledge out there to say, hey, this is where it happens, right? So it doesn't matter if it's technical or not. And customer care teams or teams that are doing like registration or enablement or access and find it very valuable as well. And that's why knowledge-centered support got changed to knowledge-centered service. So it's anytime you're providing service. And even if it's just an internal knowledge-based repository for internal use, like maybe at compliance teams, or if it's actually to serve both internal and external, it's very useful.
Great. Thank you so much, Christie.
Sure.
We have another question from Anant. Anand says, a question to Christie, certainly there were requirements of available out of box. How was this handled by CA and Wolken teams?
Yeah, I think I covered this when we were transitioning back to Preetham.
Okay.
So when we worked with Wolken, when we migrated from the former tool that we were on, we had requirements for go live that were ready, and then we worked with them on a continuous iteration program to add additional value in there. But the basics were there as far as linking and searching, adding it to the case. Obviously, the piece that they just showed you about feedback actually, I think, is pretty innovative because it integrates the AQI, which is the Article Quality Index, and it integrates that with flagging. So there's a topic in KCS that says, well, if I just want to put a note on this and say, hey, we need to fix the image, or we want to do something, that's called flagging, because I might not be the right person to edit that. And it's combining all those feedback streams into one to make it super easy. So in other instances of applications, those reside separately. So that's a very cool feature. So we work with them on ongoing improvement. Like we mentioned, KCS in program management is continuous improvement, but also the tool and the technology used is always getting better.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So the next question is, are you planning to apply automation at some level of content buildup? No. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. So one of the biggest challenges with content, okay, and this is where it differs from documentation to knowledge articles, is so a customer says, I got a blue screen of death. And if we write the article, not with what they said, but we write the article, machine ran out of storage, right? And we say, okay, here's the 5 things you need to do. But then the customer comes back in and says they got a blue screen of death with an error message. And we're like, well, wait, we have the solution over here, right? And because we answered it the way that we knew was the answer, but the customer context is not how they search. If they knew the answer, they wouldn't be searching, right? So capturing customer context takes the engineer to say, oh, well, on the phone, they mentioned this and this, and let me add that, so that when they're searching next time in their terms, not in our terms of how we solved it, they're gonna be able to find it. Like, even if they called it like my machine crashed or the power's out, right? They might call that one piece of knowledge multiple different ways, and capturing that information, I'm not sure, we haven't explored automating that. I've explored maybe doing a difference between case and knowledge to see if there's customer context that the engineer should look at, like if there was a word difference between the two, but not necessarily in populating content.
Thank you, Christie.
Sure.
So do we have any more questions? We also have Rohan and Sudhir, our co-founder, CEO and CTO with us on the webinar. So if you have any questions for them or for Christie, we are actually almost in time now, but we can take another couple of questions if you haven't.
Yeah. Akriti, while people will ask questions, I wanted to add one more point, and that is, as Christie had mentioned in her first slide, I think about 80 to 90% of the people actually do Google search before they actually come to customer service, or actually they come to Broadcom for help for their questions about Broadcom products. What we do is one of the points, and I think Preetham can expand on it, is we actually enable Google indexing of all the articles, of all the KCS articles through our system, so that it becomes easier for the end user to actually get information from Google directly, even before without joining the portal, Broadcom portal, or going to the customer service tool itself. So that's, I think, one of the big benefits. Christie, if you want to add something on that, if that's part of KCS or not, I'm not sure, but it definitely helps, right?
Yeah, and yes. So thanks, Sudhir. So getting your content out there, so we talked about the 4 pillars that what we work on in Broadcom. So content's first, but then once you populate that, search is really important. And so search engine optimization, or what they call SEO, is so important. If you have problems getting it indexed to Google, that's a challenge. So Wolken has gotten this crystal clear about how we create our indexing file and how do we update that to make sure that our content is always available to Google as fast as possible. So that is an optimized process or an integration that we have there. So definitely, thanks for mentioning that.
Thanks, Christie.
Thank you, Sudhir. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions now, so we can wrap up.
There is one
something
question.
Just came in.
Yeah, there's one question. Yeah.
Is there a good metrics for KCS?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. So if you go to the consortium website, there's a paper called Metrics Matter. There's actually a couple. And I can't stress the consortium has provided so many resources. And if you're really interested in this and becoming, not that I'm on behalf of them, but they have a lot of really great resources to get started, and they're free. Okay, so that's a really great plus too. You can become a member, attend webinars and all that good stuff. A really great group. There's also a group on LinkedIn that you can connect with. But this is like this is the $1 million question, right? So how do you measure success? And unfortunately, there's no one indicator that any organization uses consistently. So typically what you'll find is that companies will decide what's important for them. Like, what are they trying to do? Is it consumption of knowledge? Is it cases not coming in? Is it the number of searches? Maybe it's a combination of all of those to show you're moving in the right direction. And that's what I would say, that's what we focused here at Broadcom, is that when we look at all of our metrics together, we want to make continuous improvements. And when we might see a dip, we look into that and see, is it just an outlier, or is it something that we need to start to pay attention to? So I don't have one single source of truth as far as as far as metrics, but I think it's a combination. So I'd recommend that you go to the consortium site, check out the document they have about all the metrics that are available from, not just from knowledge, but if you're looking at all of self-service, self-service content could be knowledge-based articles, it could be communities, it can be documentation, it can be product news, it can be a lot of things, but from our organization, from a support organization, we create knowledge-based articles because they're being created or being updated in the moment based on customer context and demand, what they're asking us. So that's what makes us different than like a community, which is chatty, and documentation, which is official. So if you ever want to talk about metrics, definitely reach out and we can talk about that, but I don't have the answer to the $1 million question. Not today, at least.
Thank you, Christie.
Sure.
I think we can take one last question. It's from
Quickly.
Shreya.
Yeah, there's a question from Shreya. Sorry.
Yeah, Rohan, that's what I was saying. So Shreya asks, can you please let us know more about the KCS certificate examination?
Sure. So there's, on that certification slide, I just really wanted to emphasize that there is some lifetime employability options. So there's two main that maybe generally people would want to be interested. One is KCS fundamentals. So that's like 101, if you're used to classes like 101, right? Basics, here's how we use KCS as a byproduct of solving cases. Fundamentals, right? So there's a certification that there's an online class the consortium offers, and there's a exam you can take. We here have the fundamentals, what we call that created. We don't certify through the organization. You have to actually take their test to be certified through that, but we do offer the fundamentals training inside. And then the second one is version 6 best practices. So that takes you end to end. That's typically you would either attend a class or you would go online. I know Arun has gotten the certification online. I've attended a class, but it takes you end to end from not only what KCS is, but it's typically known as an evolved loop. So there's many different processes from how do we solve cases to how do we, and using knowledge, to how do we improve it. Where does technology come into play? Where does leadership and communication come into play? And so it goes over the whole span of the whole thing. And then how do you look at metrics, right? So it takes you through the whole life cycle of that. If you go to the consortium website, it will talk about that. It's not required to take a class. You can do self-study, and then you can take the exam. I'm not sure with COVID how that plays out now, if you can go sign up for a proctored test or you can do it online. And then there were two other ones on there. If you were in a large organization, we did this at CA. We actually had one person become a certified trainer internally. So what that meant was she could actually give you the exam, like watch you take it, and you wouldn't have to go to a center. Or if that's your profession and you're passionate about KCS and you love teaching, you can actually become a certified trainer. So those are the 4 certifications that I covered on that slide.
Perfect. Thank you, Christie. Shreya, I hope that answers the question.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. We do not have any more questions and we are almost in time. So we shall wrap up now. Thank you so much, Christie, for agreeing to be our keynote speaker today and sharing so much knowledge about KCS with us and answering all the questions and explaining everything so nicely. Thank you so much, Preetam, for the demo. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We will be hosting another webinars in the next few months to come. And we would like to see you over there as well. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today.